it is established these options. One, during this meeting, the public can provide public comments via telephone by calling 1-408-418-9388. The meeting ID is 712-311-348. Individuals will be able to speak for 3 minutes during the public comment period. Again, to make a public comment today during the meeting, members of the public should call 1-408-418-9388. The meeting ID is 712-311-348. A second option allowed for the public to submit written comments prior to the meeting by mail to PSTA. However, to date, it is my understanding that we did not receive any written public comments. Is that still correct?
Yes.
Is Clarissa on?
Yes, one moment. Clarissa,
Yes, Chair Barkley.
can you confirm at this time that we have no
Chair
public comment?
Barkley, Chair Barkley, we have not received any written public comments.
Thank you. Okay, the third option allows the public to submit comments by email before or during the meeting at publiccomments@psta.net. Public comment that exceeds 400 words will be provided to the board members in writing. Shorter comments will be read during the meeting. All comments submitted will be included as part of the public record for this meeting and will be considered by the board prior to any action being taken. When addressing the board, the member of the public, must first state his or her name and his or her address. Okay, at this point, for the record, I would like to confirm I can see and hear all of you, so we will do a roll call. Vice Chair Pat Gerard. Is Commissioner Gerard here?
She's muted.
Okay.
I will unmute Commissioner Gerard. You're unmuted.
I'm here.
Okay, thank you, Pat. Secretary Treasurer Gina Driscoll.
Here.
Okay, good to see you. Thank you. Commissioner David Albritton.
Present.
Commissioner Richard Bennett.
Not yet.
Richard Bennett is not in attendance yet.
Okay, we're working on that, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Commissioner Vince Cox.
Vince Cox, present.
Commissioner Samantha Finger.
Was here.
Okay, Commissioner Finger, unmute yourself at the lower left corner of your screen.
Okay, I'm here via phone.
Okay,
I-
good.
I
Very
had
good.
I had difficulties. Thank you.
Okay, all right,
Is-
got it. Okay, Commissioner Heather Gracie.
Good morning, Chair. I'm here.
Okay, good morning. Commissioner Charlie Justice, I saw you earlier.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning. Commissioner Janet Long.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I'm here.
Very good, thank you. Commissioner Darden Rice.
Good morning. I'm
Good
here.
morning.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, thank you. Commissioner
Yes.
Keith Seville. I saw you earlier, I know you're here. Keith?
Yes, I am here. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Dan Saraki.
Good morning, Chair. Dan Saraki here.
Good morning. Commissioner Josh Schulman.
Josh Schulman's here.
Very good. Commissioner Ken Welch.
Here, Commissioner. Mr.
Very
Chairman,
good. Thanks,
to see you.
sir. Good to see you. And myself, Commissioner Joseph Barkley, I'm here. Okay. Now is the time for the public to comment on any of consent items, or on any other topic not on today's agenda. On the screen is the telephone number for the public to call. It is 1-408-418-9388. The meeting ID is 712-311-348. If you want to make a comment, I'll pause for a few seconds.
Yes, we do have, one moment while we have people on the line for public comment. I'm going to call upon them by their telephone number, starting with the first 6 digits. The first person that I'd like to call is telephone number 727-710. When I call upon you, please state your name and your address, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you. Again, I'm calling upon 727-710 telephone number. Can you please state your name?
Yes, my name is Tom Rask, and good morning, Tom Rask, Unincorporated, Pinellas County. I sent the board an email yesterday about the fact that the board report operating statistics that has been presented to you today overstates the ridership through April by 15%. You can review the email. It's pretty straightforward. All you have to do is add up the total bus passenger trips in the report, previously known as total bus revenue trips, or some term like that that included the word revenue, and you'll see that it's wrong. The number's wrong. And the first hint to PSTA staff was that it was wrong should have been that ridership in April was down by more than 50%. And yet the report that you have in front of you shows an increase for the year of 2.3% total ridership. That's the first line in the Operating Statistics Board report for April 2020. In case you're having problems finding it, it's item 7 in your agenda, reports and correspondence, and then you click on April operating stats. And this calls into question the accuracy of not just the ridership, but items such as revenue miles, revenue hours, all kinds of other things. Again, I hope you all got the email. For those listening at home, you can see the calculation on TampaBayGuardian.com, which is a blog that I publish, although I don't write every article on there. You'll see the article, it's the second one. It says PSTA falsely reports bus ridership per year 15% higher than actual. I'll stop there.
All right, thank you, Mr. Rask. Go ahead with the next public comment, please, Julie.
Okay, the next user for public comment is beginning with telephone number 813760. Please state your name and address for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak.
Hello, this is Sharon Calvert. I live at 340 Pinellas Bayway South in Tierra Verde. As we know, and I understand this board also recognizes, the pandemic has devastated transit ridership all across the nation. I think also that it is causing paradigm shifts that may impact transit ridership perhaps forever, or at least for the long term. What we have been told is that being dispersed in the state of Florida and the use of our individual vehicles have helped to keep us safer and healthier. And I believe that PSTA, and looking at the CAFR that you're presenting today, your operating model is already under stress. Your operating expenses continue to rise as your fare box recovery, which is down now under 13%, has continued to decline. I don't believe that that is sustainable. But at this point, as we start coming out of this, hopefully coming out of this pandemic, I would hope that PSTA begins to honestly focus on their financial position. And at this point in time, again, pursuing the Central Avenue BRT that's going to remove a valuable lane of vehicle traffic, because we anticipate more people moving to Florida and the Tampa Bay area, and they will be bringing their cars. That you stop pursuing that, because that is only going to impact your financial distress even more. You're already depleting your reserves in pursuing that project. And I would also ask you to reconsider any of the road diets that you may also be pursuing throughout the county. And the last thing I'd like to bring up is I watched the May 6th Legislative Committee meeting, and I always was under the impression that PSTA was not a partisan agency, but I was quite astonished at some partisan comments that were made. So again, I would like to see that you stop pursuing the Central BRT and that you start honestly addressing the fiscal distress that you're even under more at this time as a result of the pandemic. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Halpert. Next, please, Julie.
Yes, we do have one more call-in user. The telephone number is 585-474. Can you state your name and your address for the record? You will have 3 minutes to speak.
Sure. My name is Nate Perez. I live at 16th Street North in St. Petersburg. I rely a lot on the connecting routes 100X and 300X to get to work because I work in Tampa. And with the reopening of a lot of businesses, it's becoming a lot harder for me to get to work. So, you know, what I've been doing lately is I've been taking the closest to Tampa and then taking Uber, but that's been hard on my budget, on my monthly budget. So I was wondering if you guys could maybe consider reopening those two routes, connecting routes, so that people who live in Pinellas County that rely on your routes to get to work to Tampa could get to work without any financial stress.
Okay.
And that's
all right.
All I have to say, really, just to reconsider.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Perez. Appreciate it. Any other comments, Julie?
Clarissa?
No, that's it.
Clarissa, can you confirm that there have been no additional written comments received to this point in time?
There are no written public comments.
Thank you. That concludes the public comments at this point in time. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. First thing on the agenda would be the committee updates. Last week, our planning committee recommended that PSTA board note its concerns with the proposed T-Barter Regional Development Plan that I understand the T-Barter board will vote on next month. But as Brad reported to us last week, our PSTA representative on the T-Barter board, Commissioner Janet Long, has been working hard to address our concerns and has some good news for us, we hope. Commissioner Long.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Barkley. And yes, I do believe that we have established some new levels of foundational trust with T-Barta and have been working with them as well as with FDOT to ensure that the recommendations that were spoken to in the Envision 2030 plan are recommendations only from the consultant, and further, that there is an awful lot of ongoing discussion that needs to happen before they're in a position to bring forward any real solid transportation funding plan. As was just so eloquently said by one of the speakers, this pandemic has surely created an environment where all of us who are electeds and or involved in the transportation solutions for Tampa Bay are going to have to seriously rethink how we approach public transportation funding and plans in going into the future. All that to say, there has never been a stronger partnership with T-BARTA than PSTA. As you all know, we have been working almost for the last 4 years on shoring up the financial situation for T-BARTA, and we have traveled miles since the beginning, walking hand in hand with T-BARTA. So when the issue of how to improve the funds for regional transit services came up in the Envision 2030 plan, not only did I have serious concerns about the impacts on PSTA, Hart, Pasco County, Manatee County, and our other partners, I clearly worried about the impact to our local contribution. All that to say, we have been assured by David Green on multiple occasions. David's their executive director, for those of you that don't know, that we are a long way to establishing a solid recurring revenue fund for T-BARTA. And that is our major focus going forward with the state legislature, to ensure that our dollars are not consistently coming out of the transportation trust fund, because when they do that, they have to take the dollars away from somebody else that those funds have already been allocated for, because they're not a line item in the budget. So, you know that in the packet that the planning committee, I think it was the planning committee, might have been the finance committee, or maybe both, recommended the letter that's in there. And in going through it again and again and again, it occurs to me that there are a couple of modifications that need to be made to that letter. So for today, I'd like to TP the letter and let us work on it a little more before we bring it back to you for a recommendation to send it on to T-BARTA. There's really not an urgency requirement to the letter at this moment. At the time that it was written, we were a little anxious because the legislature was poised to go back into session in June. But I understand from talking to Speaker-elect Sprowls that that is probably not going to happen. We're all probably going to be more subject to the governor's veto pen. So really, we'll be working on this through the summer and fall, and we can get the letter back to you before our next board meeting. So that would be my comments and my intent today, if that meets with everyone's approval.
Okay. So at this point, just to confirm, we don't have a motion to send forward the letter. We're still working on it.
I don't think the letter is ready yet. It does not address all of the issues that I think are important to put in there. And I'd like the opportunity to work with staff to make some modifications if it meets with your approval.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Long.
You're welcome.
All right, at this point then, are there any comments from the commissioners with regard to that suggestion by Commissioner Long? Yes, Commissioner Schulman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to know if that was the expectation of that letter to come back before the planning committee, or if the expectation is to come back to the board directly.
Good question. Commissioner Long?
Well, it doesn't really matter to me. I'm happy to have it go, or maybe Brad can direct us. I'm happy to have it come back to whoever wants to see it. There's just a couple of tweaks I think that are really important to put in there. And I'd like the opportunity to have the discussion with Brad.
Okay, thank you. All right. And, then we'll move on to our next item.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chair. Brad.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm sorry, I was muted. And I'm getting an echo, sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
To Commissioner Schulman's suggestion, the real question is the date of the TBARTA meeting for the month of June, I think has been scheduled for perhaps the Monday, just prior to the PSTA meeting. So if we go ahead and revise the letter some, I don't think, although Commissioner Long or maybe Alan Zimmett could clarify exactly when the TBARTA meeting is, where they're going to vote and adopt the 2030 plan provisions. I think that falls before our PSTA meeting in June. So but maybe after maybe not the full board.
Okay, you froze there for a second on your screen. Would you mind repeating that?
Oh, I'm just. We may not be able to bring the letter back to the full board because I think the TBARTA meeting meets prior to our board meeting in June, but I think it meets after the planning committee. So hopefully we'll be able to bring it to the planning committee.
Okay, thank you. Is that fine with you, Commissioner Schulman? Okay, thank you. All right. Any other comments from any of the board members?
Chair Barclay, this is Alan Zimmett. Just to answer Mr. Miller's question, yes, the TBARTA board is meeting on June 22nd, which is a Monday, and I believe that the 2030 plan is planned to be on the agenda for that meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate your comment. Okay, we'll move on now to the consent agenda. And is there anyone who has a specific item that they want to pull from the consent agenda, or shall we move forward with a vote as it stands?
Move consent, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right, we have a consent motion and a second. And so at this point, I will call the roll. Please make sure your microphone is on when I call your name. Commissioner Pat, excuse me, Vice Chair Pat Gerard.
Yes.
Be sure to say your name, Pat.
Yes.
All right. Secretary Treasurer Gina Driscoll.
Yes.
Okay. Everyone, be sure to say your name because we're on video. Be sure to say your name and then your vote. Okay. Commissioner David Albritton.
David Albritton, yes.
Okay. Commissioner Richard Bennett, is he on yet?
Yes, Richard Bennett, yes.
Thank you. Okay. Commissioner Vince Cox.
Vince Cox, yes.
Commissioner Samantha Finger. You have to unmute yourself, Commissioner.
On phone. Thank you. Commissioner Finger, yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Heather Gracie.
Gracie, yes.
Okay. Commissioner Charlie Justice.
Justice, yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Janet Long.
Long votes yes.
Commissioner Darden Rice.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Keith Sabile.
Bill, yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Dan Saraki.
Dan Saraki, yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Josh Schulman.
Josh Schulman, yes.
And Commissioner Ken Welch.
Ken Welch, yes.
And I myself, Chair Joe Barclay, votes yes. Thank you very much. Passes unanimously. Okay, so now we will move on to the action items on our agenda for today. And the first action item is the 2019 audit and comprehensive annual financial report. Debbie Leas, please.
Thank you so much, Chair Barclay. We have now completed our fiscal 2019 audit. Clifton Larson Allen, this is their last year of being our auditors. And I'm pleased to say we have an unmodified opinion with no material weaknesses on the financial audit. We did have one management comment and one deficiency over internal control compliance, which we immediately addressed during the course of the fiscal year. Lance Schmidt, who is our partner from CLA, will be giving a brief update, and I will look to Julie C. to see if he is logged in yet.
You're on mute.
Yes, he's here. He just needs to unmute himself to speak.
There he is.
Hello, good morning. I apologize. I was kicked off there for a second, but I appear to be back. So,
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
it's a pleasure to be with you this morning. We did do a presentation to the Finance Committee last week and went into great detail both about the some of the financial statements and also results of the audit and some financial highlights. And so, for today's presentation, we've kind of condensed that presentation and just some of the key highlights related to the actual results of our audit procedures. I want to take a minute just to cover some of those. First of all, I want to say I do recommend you take a look at the CAFR and all that's in there. A lot of good information. Everything I'm going to say today is a summary, I could kind of paraphrase, if you will, of the results of those procedures. Just in terms of what you've actually asked us to do, I want to cover that briefly because when we say the word audit, there's a lot that goes into that. And I want to make sure that we know exactly what you've hired us to do. The first is to issue an opinion on the financial statements, what you would typically think of as for an auditor, basically looking at the footnotes and the numbers to make sure that information is accurate. In addition to that, we also did a federal single audit and also a state single audit. We looked at the federal transit cluster, which covered about 95% of your federal expenditures that we looked at for compliance. And then we also looked at the Florida Commission for Transportation Disadvantaged Equipment Grant Program for state and also the Public Transit Block Grant Program. And so we'll cover the results of those two compliance audits next. But just want to reiterate that goes well beyond just the numbers. We're actually looking at rider eligibility information, reporting, and other compliance requirements. We also issued an agreed upon procedures report on your national transit database that goes to the Federal Transit Administration. We also looked at your compliance with Section 218, 415 Florida statutes as it relates to Florida Public Depository rules and investments for PSDA. And then lastly, we also helped submit the federal data collection form, which goes to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse. And so as you can hear, there's a lot that we did as part of the audit. It touched well beyond just finance, and we worked with individuals throughout the entire organization to accomplish this audit. And just want to publicly say thank you to Brad and Debbie and their teams for assisting us. This is not something we can just do in a vacuum. It takes a lot of cooperation from everyone, and everyone was extremely helpful in getting us information, especially when we were also dealing with COVID-19 at the time and kind of working remotely largely towards the end of the audit. So again, thank you. In terms of the results of our audit, I want to cover that quickly. The first report we issue is on the financial statements, which I mentioned earlier. I'm glad to report that PSDA received an unmodified opinion. What that means is we were able to say your financial statements are materially correct, and we did not have to say except for. If we had any exceptions to our standard report, we'd have a qualified opinion, but in this case we have unmodified, which is the best report you can receive. So again, congratulations to management and the team on a job well done there. Secondly, we issue a report on internal controls over preparing those financial statements that I just mentioned. If we had any issues there, we'd be required to report those to you. I'm glad to report that we had no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies related to preparing the financial information. So again, good news there. And then lastly, I mentioned we did a compliance audit for both federal funds and state funds. Glad to report that for both federal and state single audit, we had an unmodified opinion. What that means, again, is that we were able to say everything is materially correct and materially complied with the compliance requirements of the programs I mentioned earlier. If we if we do in this particular case, we did have one finding related to one program, one of the state programs. That again, there are 3 levels of findings. There's a material weakness, significant deficiency. Those are really the two findings, and then we have what we call management letter comments or best practices. Material weaknesses, we'd have to modify a report, but significant deficiencies are things we want to bring to your attention that you can put on your radar to fix so that they don't become bigger issues. For the financial statements, again, I mentioned we had no findings, which is a great job. For the compliance, we had the one finding. The one finding that we did have related to eligibility documentation as related to writers within one of the state programs. Want to just reiterate that if we felt that that was a big enough issue that we needed to modify our report, we would have. We've worked with management and the team and kind of seeing some of the progress that's being made in that area. This finding was new last year, and whenever you have a first-year audit finding, usually it takes 2 years for that to work through because we're usually notifying management 6 months into the current year, and there's really not time to either go back and update all the documentation or implement procedures to ensure that that's not a repeat finding, and that's what we had this year. So that was kind of a carryover from last year. It's still affected this year, but I know Debbie and her team are working diligently to make sure that that gets corrected for next year. And then lastly, we did have one management letter comment related to reconciling salaries and payroll back to various grant reports. And so we, again, not significant. It was just a couple of $100 that we just wanted to notify management of to say, you might want to revisit that process and make sure that the controls are very sound and tight there as it relates to those items. And so with that, like I said, I know for the Finance Committee, we went into a little more detail into various aspects of the financials. But at this time, I want to again just say thank you to management and team for allowing us to serve you guys for the last few years. It's truly been a pleasure. And at the same time, also open it up for any questions that you guys may have that I can answer for you.
Great. Thank you, Lance. Are there any board member questions at this time? Raise your hand and I'll call on you. Okay, seeing none, thank you very much. Do I have a motion to accept the 2019 audit?
So moved.
Okay, Commissioner Albritton moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Who was that?
Second. Commissioner Long.
Commissioner Long, thank you very much. Okay, now at this point it's time for public comment on this particular item. If you would like to make a public comment on this action, again, the telephone number is on the screen. It is 408-418-9388, and the meeting ID is 712-311-348. Julie, do we have any public comment requests at this time?
Yes, we do have public comment on the line. I currently see that we have 3.
Okay.
And I am going to allow them to speak right now and ask them. I will call them by their telephone number. The first person that I would like to call is telephone number 727-540. Can you please state your name and address for the record? You will have 3 minutes to speak.
No comment.
Okay, thank you. For the next person I see is 727-710. Can you please state your name for the record and your address? You will have 3 minutes to speak.
Yes, Tom Rask, unincorporated Pinellas County. The board members must not have read this CAFR. Look at the transmittal letter. Let me read you the first paragraph. Dear Board Chair, board members, and citizens, we are pleased to submit to you the CAFR of PSTA for the fiscal year ended September 20th, 2019, and 2018. Let me repeat that, September 20th. That's not when your fiscal year ends. Now, if Mr. Schmidt had focused more on this, getting the report right, rather than profusely thanking you, then maybe you would have had a better CAFR. I sent you an email this morning pointing out that there is a material weakness, that term as it's defined by Clifton Larson, that is missing from your CAFR. You discussed this item in October last year of your board meeting. It involved an item of approximately $500,000. And the material weakness is, quote, a deficiency or combination of deficiencies in internal control such that there is a reasonable possibility the material misstatement of the entity's financial statements will not be prevented or detected or corrected on a timely basis. And the weakness that surfaced last year involved $500,000, and it went undetected by Clifton Larson for 3 years. I was in communication with Mr. Schmidt a few months ago about this. He wouldn't at first even acknowledge receiving the email, and then he referred me to PSTA and the board. And so I'm bringing it up with you. There is clearly an item in here. There's clearly an item that should be in here. It isn't in here. It's in your own record from last October. And if the board goes ahead and approves this CAFR, it's just another piece of evidence showing that the board doesn't provide any meaningful oversight. As some of you know, I've been following PSTA now for 7 years, and frankly, you should all resign because you don't provide any meaningful oversight. You don't even read the CAFR. This is supposed to be an audit. Ms. Leos referred to Clifton Larson as their partners. They're not their partner. An auditor should come in with the attitude that everyone's lying to me until I can convince myself that that is not true. Instead, you guys talk in terms, or staff talks in terms of partner, working together, thanking each other, can't even get the fiscal year correct in the first paragraph of the transmittal letter. I'll stop there.
All right, thank you, Mr. Rask. Is anyone else in the line, Julie?
Yes, there is. We have one more person. The telephone number is 727-445. Please state your name and address for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Again, I'm calling on 727-445. If you'd like to make a public comment, please state your name for the record and your address.
No comment.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to call on Clarissa to confirm that we have no public comments written in at this time.
There are no written public comments at this
that
time.
concludes the public comment section of this particular action item.
Okay, thank you. All right. Now, we have a motion and a second to approve the audit. At this time, make sure that your microphones are on, and we will go ahead and vote on this item. Vice Chair.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Welch.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I did have a question on that September 20 typo. Has that been corrected?
We will make sure that that is corrected before it's posted up.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, please make sure your microphones are on for your vote. Please state your name because we're on video only. State your name and your vote. Vice Chair Pat Gerard.
Gerard, yes.
Secretary Treasurer Gina Driscoll.
Gina Driscoll, yes.
Commissioner David Albritton.
Albritton, yes.
Commissioner Richard Bennett.
Richard Bennett, yes.
Commissioner Vince Cox.
Vince Cox, yes.
Commissioner Samantha Finger.
Finger, yes.
Commissioner Heather Gracie,
Gracie, yes.
Commissioner Charlie Justice,
Justice, yes.
Commissioner Janet Long,
Long, yes.
Commissioner Darden Rice,
I've just unmuted Arden Rice.
okay,
Right, yes.
Commissioner Keith Sabile,
Bill, yes.
Commissioner Dan Saraki,
Dan Saraki, yes.
Commissioner Josh Schulman,
Josh Schulman, yes.
Commissioner Ken Welch,
Welch, yes.
and myself, Chair Joe Barkley, votes yes. It's approved unanimously. Thank you very much for your vote. Thank you very much for those folks who called in. Okay, moving on to our sustainability plan, task work order. Go ahead, Heather Sobush.
Heather, you're on mute.
Thank you. Okay, I'm trying to share my screen now. Share. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. So good morning. This is an action item to approve a task work order with one of our general services consultants, AECOM, to help us develop a formal sustainability plan and action program. So just a little background, PSTA was an original signatory to the American Public Transit Association Sustainability Program, which began in 2009. This program involves collecting data and improving on a number of target indicators, which are listed here. They include fleet emissions, energy and water consumption, and then recycling and waste diversion. So over the last few years, PSTA has advanced from that signatory level to bronze and then to silver. So APTA's sustainability program uses the triple bottom line framework that focuses on environmental and social sustainability just as much as financial sustainability. Many of these social and environmental initiatives also do have a positive impact on the financial side of things. So to achieve the silver level, which we did last summer, we reported on a number of major projects and numerous action items that had already been programmed. These included things like a new HVAC system, conversion to LED lighting in our entire parking lot area, a new recycling program, and then of course the phasing in of cleaner buses. So we have obviously our hybrid electric buses that we've been operating for a while, and then more recently our electric buses. So some of the action items included things like an enhanced training and wellness programs for our employees, and these are social sustainability items. We also, when we implemented our scorecard, we made sure to include sustainability metrics in that. So in going for gold, we have to make additional improvements of the target indicators. So we have to have a 2 to 4% reduction in 4 of the indicators. We have to achieve more action items and stretch goals. And some of these include things like perhaps a solar program or green infrastructure. One of our action items is actually to develop a formal sustainability plan and action program, which is specifically what we're talking about today. And we do expect that attainment at the gold level will be harder. We have accomplished a lot of kind of the lower hanging fruit and those programmed items that we had been planning for in the past. So this is why we actually went to each of our GSCs, our general service contractors, and asked them to give us a short proposal on developing a sustainability plan and action program. The goals of this will be to formalize our existing practices into this formal plan, and then identify specific projects and action items to further improve and go to that gold level. We also want to align our sustainability activities with our scorecard, and that should help in data tracking and then engagement with the rest of the departments. So the scope involves leadership interviews. It involves a stakeholder working group that will help us to confirm short and long-term goals and to help us vet sustainability actions, policies, and procedures. The scope also includes peer agency reviews. So some of those agencies that are similar in size, that have already achieved at the goal level, and then also best practices. And then it also includes the development of a data reporting tool that not only allows us to track our data in one single location, but also to report out to the board and to the public on our activities. So when we did these interviews, we selected AECOM. They brought a great national team, and I would say one of the kind of bright spots in this work from home situation is that we were able to access people that don't currently need to travel, so they can do this remotely. And they brought expertise from the West Coast, from Atlanta, and they talked specifically about helping us develop very specific, actionable, and realistic initiatives for PSTA. So that brings us to today's action, which is to approve the task work order with General Services Consultant AECOM to develop a sustainability actions program at an amount not to exceed $175,000. And this amount is funded by existing FTA dollars that are specifically for planning activities. Happy to take any questions.
I'll move approval. This is Gina Driscoll.
Second.
Okay.
Can't hear the chair.
Chair Barkley, you're muted.
Okay. Who, I'm sorry, I missed who made the motion for this?
I think it was Driscoll,
Okay, and who was the second?
the Commissioner Welch.
Okay. All right. Thank you, folks. All right. Now, what I'd like to do at this point is ask if there is any public comment. Now's the time to do that. If you'd like to make a public comment on this action item, again, the telephone number is on the screen. It is 1-408-418-9388. And the meeting ID is 712-311-348. Julie, do we have any public comment on this item?
We have 3 remaining public attendees on the public comment line. I'm going to parse them now and ask them if they'd like to make a comment.
Okay.
When I call upon you by your telephone number, please state your name and address for the record. The first person is 727-710. You will have 3 minutes to speak.
Tom Rask, unincorporated Pinellas County. Given the hole that you're going to have in your budget, you're going to be short of revenue, and it's going to be an unknown amount. You won't know until you get a full month with Pinellas County reopened, so to speak. I think it's unwise to go ahead with this item right now, to be chasing gold stars and gold certifications and checking boxes to please APTA. APTA, in the end, is a lobbying organization. If you go to their website and you click on the About APTA section, it says that they're an association of more than 1,500 public and private sector members organizations. Benefits to our members include advocacy for federal funding and policies. They put that first because that is what they are first and foremost. They are a lobbying organization. And while I'm all for saving money, to spend 175 or $200,000 or whatever the number was. At this point, when you know your fare box, the revenue through your fare box is going to be down quite a lot compared to what you budgeted for, I think it's better that you delay this item for a month or two before you vote on it. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Mr. Rask. Who is the second person on the line, Julie?
The second person on the line is 727-445. Please state your name and address for the record.
No comment.
Thank you. I'd like to.
Third person?
That third person has dropped off the line. I would just like to confirm with Clarissa at this point in time that there is no written public comment for this action item.
There are no written public comments.
Okay, thank you, everyone. All right, so make sure your microphones are on. And again, state your name with your vote because we're on a video system. First in line, Vice Chair Pat Gerard.
Gerard, yes.
Secretary Treasurer Gina Driscoll.
Driscoll, yes.
Commissioner David Albritton.
Albritton, yes.
Commissioner Richard Bennett.
Richard Bennett, yes.
Commissioner Vince Cox.
Vince Cox, yes.
Commissioner Samantha Finger. You need to unmute yourself, Commissioner Finger.
Commissioner Finger, yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Gracie?
Thank you.
Gracie?
Gracie, yes.
Okay, Commissioner Charlie Justice?
Justice, yes.
Commissioner Janet Long?
Long, yes.
Commissioner Darden Rice?
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Keith Seville?
Seville, yes.
Commissioner Dan Saraki?
Dan Saraki, yes.
Commissioner Josh Schulman?
Josh Schulman, yes.
Commissioner Ken Welch?
Welch, yes.
And myself, Commissioner Joe Barkley, vote yes, passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Now I understand that Brad is going to give us a short update on PSTA's operations and financial outlook during this time when everything in our world, including transportation, has been turned upside down. Brad, please go ahead.
Okay. Can you see my lovely care ride vehicle?
Yep.
Okay, good. Yeah, so first I will cover a immediate issue that we've been dealing with the last couple of weeks regarding our partner that provides our paratransit service, and then I'll go into partnering with Debbie Elias, talking about the financial picture as we see it now. I think there is a little echo. I don't know. Maybe it went away. Okay, so unfortunately, a great partner of PSTA's, CareRide, our paratransit provider, gave us notice just about 2 weeks ago that their parent company, Baycare Health System, has decided to end their participation in the transportation business and put the company CareRide up for sale and potentially close their doors. This is very important to PSTA because PSTA uses CareRide to provide what's called our paratransit service, or our DART service. We are required to provide this service by the federal government under the Americans with Disabilities Act. And pre-coronavirus times, we were carrying as many as 1,500 riders per day. These are disabled riders that cannot ride the fixed route service, and so they really have no other transportation option. Hundreds of them are going to medical appointments daily, some dialysis and other kinds of treatments. So providing this service is really sort of a lifeline to help these people. So ending the service is really just not a viable option for PSTA. So this was a very worrisome situation just a couple weeks ago when CareRide, because of their parent company BayCare having serious financial effects due to the pandemic, gave us notice that they would like to eliminate their operation. I really want to express my deepest thanks to several board members for helping us find a very, very successful solution so that we are going to have a great transition period with CareRide. They are not shutting their doors anytime soon. And
Julie, is it possible Brad lost his transmission?
Chair Barkley, this is Debbie. Let me just, while he's reconnecting perhaps.
Okay.
We've had some great conversations with BayCare regarding CareRide, and we're looking to bring a solution to the board at next month's meeting. And we're very appreciative of the board members who have called over to BayCare to reiterate how important the service is to the community, to get people to literally life and death situations where they need dialysis, etc. So a very vital service to the community. And we've negotiated some items, and we're getting the lawyers involved to help write an amendment that we'll be bringing forth in June. The cost is not significant to PSTA, but it's very important to allow us to go through a proper procurement process to get us through a nice transition period with a new provider.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Julie, did Brad get back on the line?
And
You're
Julie,
muted, Julie. You're muted.
He is not back yet.
Mr. Chair,
Yes. Go
I'm
ahead,
just,
Commissioner Long.
I'm just curious about whether or not anyone else lost their audio feed, because I missed most of what Brad said. The
Yes,
audio.
Yes, he lost his feed altogether, and he's signing back in, as I understand it.
Okay, is he going to pick up where he left off? Because
Yes,
now
I'm going to go
feel
back and
like
have him reiterate what he was going to say when he lost connection. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
All right,
Julie, is he
sorry.
back on yet?
No, he is not back on yet. I'm working with him to get him an audio.
Everybody stand by for a minute, please. Okay.
Hey,
You back on? Okay, would you start from the beginning? Yeah, would you start from the beginning, Brad? We lost your voice there.
yeah, I'm so sorry. I won't share the screen. It was the CareRide picture. Maybe that'll help. I'm sorry about that. Yeah. So I'll just try to keep it really quick. PSTA contracts with CareRide, this company. We've been contracting with them for maybe 15 years in some state or capacity. Many of the board members who have been on the board for a long time can know what a great partner CareRide has been. 2 years ago, Care Ride was bought out by Baycare Health System. Baycare is the majority owner of Care Ride now. And just a couple weeks ago, Baycare notified PSPA that they intend to sell Care Ride and or eliminate their operation. Their original request was to eliminate it fairly quickly. We were able to negotiate thanks in part to great assistance by Commissioner Welch, Cox, Barkley, others, making phone calls. They have agreed to a transition plan with PSTA to continue to operate Care Ride for over another year. Now, we're going to be coming back to the PSTA board next month with a deal that we have struck with Care Ride and Baycare that will cost PSTA some more money to keep Care Ride going. But maybe before I cut out, I was explaining, this is such an important service for PSTA. First of all, it's a federal requirement. We must provide the service. Second, we're carrying up to more than 1,000 people that most of which have no other transportation option, and many are going to medical appointments. It's really a life or death situation for many riders on this Care Ride program. This is a service for people with disability that cannot ride the regular bus. So the deal that we have reached with Care Ride is to continue operations through next June 30th, 2021. That's more than a year from now. And in exchange, PSTA will basically do two things. And this will all be with the work of our great legal counsel, Alan Zimmett, who's going to help us work out this deal, write this up, and present to you next month. First, July 1st, we're going to start paying them a little bit more money for the trips that they are providing. We're estimating that will be somewhere around $100,000 additional from what their contract already entails. And then second, at the end of the contract next year, we will potentially have to provide them some additional funds to keep them basically backstop any losses they might have at the very last 3 months of their contract. But Baycare and PSTA is not forecasting any losses next year at this time. So we don't think that that's a major financial impact to us. We have a very exciting plan that we'll also present to you next month on how we're going to very quickly transition to a new company. I want to assure everyone, including folks that are maybe watching this, that PSTA is committed to continuing to provide high-quality DART service for the foreseeable future. We will be transitioning to a new company, but that does not mean any job losses. All of the existing drivers will be offered jobs with the new company. All of the existing employees can transition to the new company. It'll be a seamless transition. Some board members who were here 4 years ago can remember when PSTA transitioned the last time we had this contract out to bid from Yellow Cab to Care Ride, and there were some real challenges and problems. It is so important for us to have a smooth transition for our customers because the new company will need to come to Pinellas, find a facility, access vehicles, purchase vehicles, and we do think that the coronavirus pandemic will make that more challenging, but we intend to move as quickly as we possibly can. One of the successes sort of Care Ride and one of the challenges has been that the number of rides on Care Ride has gone up and up and up so much that they just haven't had enough vehicles to provide all the demand. This is obviously all pre the pandemic. And so one of the things we are also implementing at the same time is an entirely new eligibility program for PSTA, a new mobility program that in the future will completely change the way we operate DART, where not all the services will be provided by CareRide anymore, but thanks to our great innovations and partners with Uber and Lyft, folks that can ride in a car will, for the most part in the future, not ride on CareRide. They will ride in other vehicles on a real-time basis. So it's very exciting time in that respect, but it's also a key solution to transitioning properly from one paratransit provider to another. It's kind of a sad moment for me because in my career, I can honestly say I've never had a better contracted service provider than CareRide. They've been a great partner. They have excellent customer service, but I'm really happy that we have this new mobility program going. We have reached a solution to provide us enough time so we can put this out to bid, hopefully by the end of this summer, and get a new contractor in place next spring, and then give that new contractor time to get the vehicles in place to start up with a seamless transition. I'll stop there before moving on to sort of my coronavirus update to answer any questions, or maybe Commissioner Cox or others might have a comment.
Okay, are there any comments from the board at this time? Raise your hand and I will call on you.
I have my hand raised, Commissioner Cox.
Okay, go ahead, Vince.
Okay, Brent, thank you for that presentation. I do want to make a correction here, though, that Baycare does not totally own CareRide. There's still 3 other partners. And Baycare became a partner with CareRide almost 20 years ago. And the DART program then was awarded to CareRide 12 years ago, which was 2008. And then the ambulatory part of it with Yellow Cab was roughly, I think, 3 or 4 years ago. That being said, I just want to make sure that when we move in to these changes, that our new eligibility program is in place, because in my opinion and others' opinion, that kind of is what I want to say hurt CareRide, because that volume was not expected of new clients. And the reason it happened, for the most part, is that it became word of mouth. People found out they actually could get to their appointments, in a dependable way and on time. So I think it's tantamount that we focus on the new eligibility program that will help CareRide in the immediate future, and then the new provider beyond that. So could you tell me where we're at? Because I know we had consultants in here and they did a very good job, and where we are in the eligibility and when the people would actually be interviewed in person rather than kind of like a blanket approval. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you, Commissioner Cox. That's a great question. And that's exactly what I was speaking to as we're sort of transitioning, making 2 major changes. One is getting a new service provider in, and I'll be very much reliant and grateful for Al Burns helping us through that transition period and getting a new contractor. But at the same time, we, as you mentioned, we're launching something that hasn't really happened anywhere in the country, a complete integration of all of our mobility programs to change the eligibility process for paratransit in Pinellas County in the biggest way that it's ever been changed, so that many fewer people are sent to CareRide or to one vendor and overwhelming them. And instead, we're using all of our resources, Uber and Lyft and potentially other contractors in Pinellas County, so that no organization gets overwhelmed. And at the same time, we give everyone a ride that fits their needs, that in the way that they can handle it. Now, we had hoped to launch this new program in May, but we had a little thing called the pandemic that sort of delayed our ability to do in-person interviews with people. But we have decided with our consultants that we can't wait. We can't wait until this pandemic is over and start doing in-person interviews. So we're going to start this program in about a month on around July 1st with phone interviews of new patients. Now, luckily, the coronavirus pandemic has dramatically reduced ridership on paratransit. So the targets of the number of ambulatory rides we had hoped to achieve in transition away from care ride has been met, but not because of anything we did, just because of the reduction in ridership on due to the coronavirus. But in about and you'll hear more about this new program next month. But July 1st, we'll really start to implement the mobility program. That's our schedule now. At the same time, we're going to be going out to bid for a new contractor so that we can have a smooth transition. And like you say, that the long term is that this new eligibility program will benefit PSTA, the new contractor, care ride in the short term.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Long.
Yes, so Brad, I have several questions on this topic. And the first one is, as Alan is working to implement the new contract, I hope that he'll consider, or you all consider, putting an opt-out clause in the agreement should we identify a suitable partner earlier than, let's say, next July or whenever that proposed agreement ends. I have a little bit of angst about the accelerated cost with this agreement with Baycare. So if there's an opportunity for us to opt out of it in a shorter time frame, once we identify a new provider, I hope we'll be able to do that. Secondly, and maybe you can speak to that, but then secondly, correct me if I am mistaken, because it was my understanding that in the federal guidelines that helps to promote this program and pay for it, there was a requirement to have certified drivers who knew CPR and basic EMT services, given that something happened with their passenger. And given that we're transitioning to allow Uber and Lyft drivers to carry folks, how are we assuring that those drivers meet that eligibility requirement?
Great questions. Great questions. On your first question about the ability for us to transition earlier, that certainly is a possibility. We're going we've developed a schedule based on our procurement 4 years ago, when, as Commissioner Cox mentioned, we did transition some of our services from Yellow Cab to Care Ride, and mainly for the need to access the quantity of vehicles. We've put in this schedule that takes us out to next spring and summer. The idea we would put a procurement out at the end of this summer and bring this back to the PSTA board either at the very end of this year or early 2021 to award contracts for new providers. If they're up and running and ready to go, like you say, we can transition rides to them right away. It's really kind of the same thing we did 4 years ago. It's likely that there'll be a phased transition plan where more and more rides will be sent to the new contractors, and then slowly we'll transition down the rides to Care Ride. So your point is well taken. Second, on making sure that we comply with all the rules and regulations and provide the safe and appropriate rides to everyone, it is very complex. there is a web of rules and regulations that the federal government and the state government and the county government of Pinellas County has regarding paratransit services that we provide. And it is incumbent upon all of our providers and our eligibility process that we comply with all of those. I'm pleased to say we just had an ADA certification compliance test, and we passed it with flying colors. We've passed our drug testing requirements, which that's a key component. Of course, Uber and Lyft drivers are not drug tested, unlike all PSTA bus drivers and care ride drivers. So we have to be very cognizant of complying with those specifications as well. So that's why it sort of takes a little while to develop these whole new programs, is to make sure that we are in compliance with all those laws that you specify, and make sure that everybody is safe. In addition, we are working through the pandemic, coronavirus right now, and that has layered on additional requirements of ensuring that all of our customers and our employees are wearing masks and PPEs and making sure they have those available. And CareRide has been doing a great job with that as well.
Follow up, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Brad. Thank you for that response, and I appreciate your comments about the drug testing. But my actual question was, and I want to see if I'm correct. It is my understanding that the federal requirements mandate that those drivers be able to do basic CPR and EMT services if in fact something happens with the passenger while they're transporting them. And I'm curious to know how we ensure that Uber and Lyft drivers have the proper certifications.
Well, Commissioner, and I can't profess to be, having all the federal regulations memorized, but I am not aware of such a federal requirement, but we can look into that. I do know that there are some county requirements in that regard for paratransit. So it gets into the definitions of what we provide to paratransit. If we give the customer the option, if it's their choice to use an Uber or Lyft, and that changes things. There's a lot of parameters that we can adjust to get people the right ride in a safe way and in a legal way, compliant.
So I appreciate your answer, Brad. That said, when this finally gets the I's dotted and the T's crossed, I'd appreciate it if Alan could provide us with some guidance about if they don't have these requirements or certifications, who has the liability if something goes wrong? Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you. Alan, do you have any comments? Alan Zimmett?
Just unmuting there, Jared.
Okay.
I heard Commissioner Long's comments, and certainly we can address in the agreement the ability to opt out. I'll have to get with staff to determine when and how much time we would need to give CareRide in terms of notice. And I will look into the requirements for certification of Uber and Lyft. Like Mr. Miller, I'm not aware of anything in the ADA requirements that require them to be certified or have any kind of EMT paramedic type of certification. The one I'm familiar with is the drug testing issue that we deal with on other contracts that we have with Uber and Lyft. But we'll take a look into that, Commissioner Long.
Thank you very much. Okay, are there any other comments on this item? Raise your hand and I will recognize you.
I think Commissioner
Mr.
Cox
Chair?
has his hand raised.
Go ahead, Vince.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. And Brad, one other question I had. I'm looking at the recommendations for the consulting firm, and one of the issues was the lack of staffing that's in the mobility program. And they were recommending 2 FTEs to help because of the volume that we do here at PSTA. And they recommend 2 FTEs to be put into that position for staff. Could you tell me where we're at with that?
Yes. So we've had a consultant on board helping us transition to this new mobility program. And I'm pleased to say that we have identified and filled those 2 additional recommended positions that the consultants recommend. In addition, we've just hired a new director of this mobility department, this service, and that is Bonnie Epstein, who many of you know. Now she's shown up on the screen there. Yesterday was her first day on the job in this new role, and we're very excited for her to take the lead on all of this. She's a nationally known leader in implementing this new eligibility type system. And like I said, we are really pushing the envelope on training all of these new employees and getting this going. As you mentioned, Commissioner Cox, it's important to get it going quickly on July 1st. So.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, thank you for that presentation, Brad. Now we're going to move on to the update on the COVID-19 and our forecast for what we plan to continue to do under the circumstances. Oh, and Debbie Elias, our CFO, is also going to participate in this. I'm sorry, Debbie, I did not include you.
Okay. I will try to share my slides, but it's not working too well here. Okay. Okay. I think you can see this. Hopefully I won't get kicked out. So I'll go fast. I just wanted to give the board a little bit of update this month on where we stand in working through the pandemic, the plans for reopening, and then looking to the future, what we know and what we don't know. And Debbie will kind of give you an update on our financial outlook as this stands today. Takeaways hoping you can receive before I get kicked off of Zoom or something. Number one, PSTA's made a number of major changes to the way we operate transit in Pinellas County, and those have been successful so far at keeping people safe. You know, I am incredibly proud of the staff, our contractors, everybody, in how nimble they have been in implementing social distancing and completely changing their work activities in response to the coronavirus, so that if you count the 650 PSTA employees, the Care Ride employees, the Jolly Trolley employees, all of our 15 board members that are on the Zoom call right now, it totals more than 800 people that are involved in PSTA transit services. And as of now, knock on wood, we have had 0 positive tests for coronavirus amongst all of the employees. I think we are the last transit system in Florida not to have any positive tests. And I'm very, very proud of that. Of course, that probably will change, or that may change. But it's because of the changes we made in requiring masks, in putting different procedures in place on social distancing on our buses. Right now, we're limiting all of the buses to have only 10 or 12 passengers on every bus. We are really strongly encouraging wearing of masks. And just yesterday and the day before, James Bradford and his team started passing out bandanas, PSTA bandanas, to our riders. There was a little confusion with our finance department. They thought they were bananas. No, they're not bananas. They're bandanas that we're giving to our riders. That's a coronavirus joke. Our transit centers in St. Pete and in Pinellas Park and Clearwater all have 6-foot markings on the ground. We've blocked off chairs. Our offices are obviously closed. People that can work from home are working from home. Some of our calls, like the mobility program, they're working from home and answering phone calls from their home right now and giving rides. And all of this has led to keeping not only our employees, but our customers safe as well. Financially, the takeaway is that everything that we can control, which is our expenses, are being controlled in an incredible way. And we are doing a great job in reducing expenses for our transit services. Debbie Leas is going to tell you a little bit more about that. Meanwhile, all of the projects that we have across the whole organization, from our bus rapid transit project to our electric charging station, which is now open, to the sustainability things that Heather was talking about, those are all moving forward. We have a plan for restoring our transit services incrementally as the economy opens up. Because we want to keep the social distancing activities in place, we have to add buses to the routes as the ridership starts to grow again. And it's obviously growing on our major routes first. So on June 7th, we will be transitioning from the current Saturday level of service that we're operating to Saturday level plus extra services on our top highest ridership corridors. In addition, when the beaches opened up on Clearwater Beach and others, we restated the Jolly Trolley service on Clearwater Beach, and that's been successful. Starting June 5th, in just about a week, we will restore the Looper service in downtown St. Pete. I heard the public comment earlier about restoring the cross-bay services, the 100 and 300X to Tampa. And so we'll talk about when we can restore that service as well. The big question, the question I think we all have is the revenue side. Those are the big unknowns. We're thankful very much for the federal CARES Act funding that all transit systems across the country received. And so the takeaway is that we feel very good. We feel confident that fiscal year 2020, the year you're in now, and next year, the budget that we'll present to you next month will be balanced. And last, we've just talked about the Care Ride issue, which was just another wrinkle thrown into the mix. But I'm thankful, and I really want to express my appreciation to Commissioner Cox and Welch and Chair Barkley for helping us solve that problem. Like I said, the projects that PSTA is working on haven't stopped. We have just finished the first bus rapid transit station down in St. Pete Beach at the County Beach Park, and that will be open and starting on June 7th for the Central Avenue Trolley to service that bus-only turnaround and station in the County Beach Park. And I went down and it looked good. I saw it this weekend. Our bus rapid transit project is now out to bid. We had the pre-bid meeting, which I told the bidders, we had more than 15 bidders participate yesterday in meetings. It was historic. It's the first pre-bid conference ever for a rapid transit project in the Tampa Bay region, and that's exciting. We've made a great progress, and thanks to Commissioner Long for being on phone calls with FTA Administrator Jane Williams and myself and others in Washington, D.C. We're in a position now awaiting the federal funds for the BRT, where the FTA has agreed that we've met all of their obligations, and now we're waiting, along with everybody in the entire country, all the transit systems across the country, on the US DOT allocating funding, approving of allocation of funding. So we're in the hopper with a number of other cities across the country waiting for Secretary Chow and the overall federal government to make allocations. We expect sometime in the next few weeks. We're very hopeful. As I mentioned, the electric bus charging station is complete, and Chair Barkley and I will be having a socially distanced ribbon cutting for that coming up. A project that the board approved just last month is underway in our maintenance department, where new lifts are being installed, and Henry reports that helps with the mask wearing because it's so dusty down there as they cut up the concrete that all the employees have to wear masks anyway. So that's helpful. We just signed on with Duke Energy on a solar panel project where more and more of our energy will be sustainable. And our planning department has not stopped. We've submitted more than a dozen grant applications during the last couple of months of the pandemic to keep projects moving forward. State grants, federal grants. We applied, Commissioner Albritton will be excited to know we applied for a build grant with the city of Clearwater's support for a new intermodal station funding there in Clearwater. And that work continues as well. Here's a picture of our ridership graph over the last 3 months. You can see in the month of March, it goes up and down because this is daily ridership, and the valleys on my graph are the weekends where ridership is down. You can see it dropped to about 50% of our normal levels in the month of March. Then it kind of flattened out in April, and then just as the economy has been opening up more and more, you can see it's starting to grow in May. And this is why we have to transition. We have to add more services into the future. I will pass it on to Debbie now to talk about our financial situation.
Thank you, Brad. And I'm going to apologize in advance. Speaking of concrete work, I live in a condo and they've been drilling into the concrete above me all morning. So it's quiet for the moment. But at any rate, what I'd like to talk about is how great we're actually looking partway through the fiscal year on our budget. At the Finance Committee, we presented the March numbers, and we were at that point $4.3 million positive variance to budget. And that's with already the COVID starting to impact us. In the April numbers, which I have reviewed, and with no fares being charged, we are balanced through April with $3.4 million positive variance to budget. We're seeing that expenses are down in all categories and seeing savings, but especially in salaries and fringes. And diesel fuel cost is way down. I'm sure you know when you go to the gas station, you have seen prices have plummeted. So we're benefiting from that, not only in this year, but for next, because we've locked in a piece for next year already. One of the other areas that we're significantly under budget in, that we've talked about this morning, is DART. While it's cost saving on our side, it's a revenue loss for CareRide. But it is really thanks to all the staff for thinking outside the box to find ways of saving money and being innovative, much like our planning department did to leverage our partnerships with such vendors as Uber for our Essential Workers program. This program is for essential employers and businesses whose employees rely on the bus, but because of either expanded business hours or less span on PSTA bus service, the employees are not able to get to and from work. And we are working with the employers and the employees. And for the employees, we're trying to use existing services such as TD Late Shift and Direct Connect to get them to and from work. So we're doing quite well. Matter of fact, our finances, as an overall statement, are doing so well. I think our expenses this year may be less than last year. So we'll be seeing more of that when I present the budget in June. If you could go to the next slide, Brad.
Yeah.
Thank you. And speaking of the future is the big question mark. And, we depend a lot on state funding, especially when I look at this in the short term. We receive more than $10 million a year from the state. And about 4.7 of it is block grant money. And most of that comes from gas tax money that's going to the DOT. And as we've just talked about, gas tax has taken a huge hit. We've also, I've got concerns about where we will be with property tax going forward. And we'll be learning more about that in the next couple of weeks and how that will impact us. And of course, we've had additional expenses of buying cleaning supplies, masks. We've put on additional security and other safety expenses due to this emergency. We also will be starting labor negotiations with our supervisory employees. And as an overall statement, we are very unsure what our future employee compensation levels will be. But I believe that between lower expenses and the CARES Act funding, for which we're extremely grateful, that will help us mitigate lower revenues and increased costs, we will be balanced through fiscal 20 and through fiscal 21. And turn it back to you, Brad.
Okay. Last but not least, I just want to express how grateful I am to all of the PSTA employees that have been so great and been working so hard, from our bus operators who are constantly on the front line. They're essential workers, just like some of the other ones that we celebrate even more. I don't know how many of you ever watch PBS NewsHour, but one of our bus operators was recently on a national program talking about her job, and it was reported that transit workers are the number 2 most dangerous employment work position in this pandemic. And so they are on the front line doing their best. They are basically dealing with two kinds of comments. One, the buses are passing me by because the buses are full to their 10 passenger limit, and we have to send another bus out. Or two, thank you so much for being out there because you're getting me to my job or to my essential worker. And then they themselves are constantly communicating with James and the union and me about how can we tie down wheelchair customers safely when we have to strap them in and get very close to them? How can we keep having people getting in the back door, but reducing the number of people that maybe we don't think are taking essential workers? We're constantly working with our union, answering questions, trying to come up with new ideas, being part of so many organizations like APTA and the Florida Public Transit System and the benchmarking program has really helped us in learning from others and implementing new measures to deal with this. That's all been great. I am very thankful to them. I'm thankful for the PSTA board who's helped us deal with things like Care Ride, like the issue that Commissioner Long helped us with T-BARTA during this this really interesting time. It's just really an honor to be working with these men and women every day, and I'm grateful for that. So thank you. I'll be glad to answer any questions or any comments the board members would like to make.
Do I have any comments from the board? Please raise your hand. I'll recognize you. I don't see anybody with any questions, Brad, but thank you very much for that report. Let's move on to reports and correspondence. Anything new there, Brad?
Yeah, well, I would like to make a comment related to a comment that one of our citizens made earlier in the meeting about our ridership report. And I'm always appreciative of Mr. Rath keeping us on our toes. And I'm not sure if he'll be excited about this answer, but if you look at the ridership report, you will see that ridership continues to be higher this fiscal year. And that is due to mostly due to a change in the way we are reporting ridership that was brought on, that we've been working on for a very long time, but was accelerated by the coronavirus. Since we are requiring all passengers to board by the back door, we can't count riders in the traditional way we had been counting by using the fare box. We had to go to using our automatic passenger counters, which we now have on every PSTA bus. These are lasers that track when passengers get on and off the bus. And that's the system that we are now using to track riders. We had to go through a whole certification process with our auditors and with the Federal Transit Administration to get them to approve the use of this new technology for counting riders. And we received that approval back in March. So we are now tracking riders using automatic passenger counters, which is a much more accurate way of tracking the number of riders on our buses. And so the reason that ridership is down in the month of April and May, but up still for the year, is because we are now tracking riders in a different way. And that's asterisked on the report and noted on the report. So it does look, we want to make sure that people are aware that it was a change in the way we are counting the riders. But it's an important change, it's a necessary change. And I know it's a more accurate way of counting the patronage on all of our systems throughout the county. The other reports are in your packet. I failed to mention there are some surveys we did of our customers that are also in the packet that show, the percentage of our riders that are who's riding today. Are they essential workers going to medical jobs, or many folks are also going grocery shopping and to other jobs that are keeping their family employed. And that's an interesting bit of information in your packet. Last, and then I'll be done. Future meeting subjects. We do have a busy June, as I've mentioned. We're going to have a action item to modify the Care Ride agreement to put in a smooth transition, and we'll also give you a presentation on our new mobility programs and eligibility programs. Of course, we have the Debbie Leah show, where she'll be presenting the 2021 budget coming up in the month of June, so get excited about that. And we're very hopeful that we'll have the construction contract award for our bus rapid transit. So a very exciting June board meeting, Zoom or otherwise, to look forward to. Chair Barkley, that concludes my comments.
Thank you very much. Okay, are there other board member comments at this time? Raise your hand and I will entertain those.
Mr. Albrecht.
Seeing none, I would just like to say, go ahead.
I think Commissioner Albritton has a comment.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't see your hand there. Go ahead, Commissioner Albritton.
I just want to say thanks to the staff of the PSTA and the great job they're doing through this pandemic. A lot of people really don't see what we do for public transportation, and I brought this forward to at least our city manager, and we're going to start. Actually, I'm going to start giving a kind of a report on council meetings and get it out to our people in Clearwater and let them know, because there's a lot of things that happen through PSTA that are beneficial for our people. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, I would just like to say,
Commissioner Driscoll has a comment.
Okay, I'm sorry. Some of the hand raising is not showing up on my screen. I apologize. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Commissioner Albritton, for that great idea. We have a committee of the whole meeting for City Council tomorrow. And as part of that, I will also share the stories of the tremendous efforts by PSTA and all of the things that we have to be so proud of in how the agency has responded to this difficult time and really provided a public service that is absolutely critical during this time. So thank you for the idea. And I look forward to representing PSTA and talking about this tomorrow in our city council meeting.
Thank you. Good point. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, I would just like to say thank you to all the PSTA workers, whether you're driving a bus, repairing a bus, working in an office setting at home. Thank you to all of you. This is a trying time, and we're very proud of all the work that you do. And even though there may be some times where the public is not totally satisfied with us, we are doing everything possible to make our system exemplary throughout the country, and that's part of why we are in our benchmarking program. And I would also like to congratulate all the PSTA workers for not testing positive. This is a major, major event that we don't want anyone to get sick, and we're very proud that they are all doing everything possible to prevent any kind of an issue with regard to their health or the health of any of our riders. I would also like to thank the board. This is a little bit of a hard way to operate for all of us. I apologize if I have missed your comments and things of that nature, but I can only see 5 people on my screen at a time. And I would like to just say that I'm very proud of each and every one of the board members for what they do. I don't know if the public appreciates what each of you does, but I think it's very important that we're doing a very important public service. PSTA is really happy to have you participating in this process. Our next meeting is June 24th at 9 a.m. and this meeting is now adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.